Right. Hello, everyone. Again, thanks for attending today's presentation. My name is Sergio, and I'll be your tour guide through the Eplan platform engineering ecosystem made simple. So here we go. Let's take a look a little bit and have a little bit more of a clearer overview of what we're going to be presenting today. So um, you should expect no less, of course. Our suite of product lines have everything you need to perform all the desired tasks in your daily business, as well as help your company grow and thrive, obviously. From the electrical design aspects, the fluid to panel building, whether you're doing harness design, whether you're doing process engineering, and so on and so forth. All of the vast array of products available will allow you to actually, mass produce the right amount of information, the right amount of proper documentation for all the different aspects of your machine builds and so on and so forth. So um, based on a solid foundation with years of experience, our Eplan platform enables us to have the best experience possible, making your design and documents consistent, error-free, and especially, fun to use. So this is one of the key aspects that we, focus on is the capability of allowing your users to have data quality, data consistency, standardization, and all the different aspects and different facets allowed to share this information through a common platform with different departments and so on and so forth. So this is huge benefit when we're trying to collaborate. And of course, along with collaboration, what we get in return is a product that is streamlined, and actually, the production of this actually, the time frame goes down. Other benefits available as well that connect to the platform environment is the capability of accessing part information. As we all aware in our everyday procedures when we're doing design work, when we're selecting components, we need maybe certain devices that customers spec'd out that are particular, and I might not necessarily have those in my parts database. So we've devised a repository of manufactured information and data sets that enable the users to actually grab the information from our data portal, which is a cloud-based environment, and actually bring that information into our design space. The benefit of this, of course, is the ease of use functionality and also the interconnectivity that we have with the different disciplines across the platform environment. So in essence, the platform grows with the amount of data that you provide to your project, whether it be from our, diverse products that we have available, or from another source. This gives you great flexibility to deliver documentation in numerous amount of formats. Of course, bringing in information from other applications such as pre-planning, maybe your machine systems and your different concepts that you have, you can bring that into that platform environment, as well as bringing in fluid, maybe whether it be electrical schematic information, pro panel if you're doing any panel design as well, maybe some harness design as well that you're doing. All this information is shareable through the Eplan platform, and obviously having access to all the information from the different trades make our project that much more consistent. Of course, having the data coming out from the data portal for component and information and adding that information into the platform environment allows you great flexibility to share the information that comes from the data portal that might contain documentation associated to components that you're going to need, of course, in the course of your project. So a lot of ease of use functions that enable us to produce high quality documentation that, it has in essence can wow your customers and, give you, that step ahead of the competition. Other aspects, of course, is the capability of producing high quality documentation. We can actually produce reports, documents that would be needed, information that we would have to normally produce in a manual format. So obviously in this particular case here, this is not something that I need to worry about. I do not need to produce information manually. I don't need to worry about, oh damn, my customer actually asked me for a from-to list with some specific information associated to that list. Now, how am I going to do that? Am I going to do that in Excel, in text file, or how am I going to produce this information? I also have to manage it manually. I have to produce this information manually, and that is time consumption right there. So, of course, having that information in the platform environment, we can spit that information out very easily, very rapidly, as well as creating machine language that might be needed. So if you have any particular fabrication steps or procedures in place, we can actually start to produce file information that goes into maybe some wire cutting machines or wire fabrication machines, as well as maybe some NC drilling machines that you would have to normally feed that information manually, of course, or maybe use a third-party tool to communicate to these machines. Right away from the platform environment, the documentation comes out in a file format with all the specifications required in that file so that these machines can actually read that information. Of course, from here, we can integrate with different PLC softwares that are out there. Of course, in the life cycle of our project, when we're doing our design work, if we are going to be using some PLCs and some inside our projects, these PLCs communicate via their specific medium, and we can actually access that information from those mediums. So we can actually send information bidirectionally into that system so that the information is accurate on both ends, as well as sending information from the ERP, PDM systems that you might have in place, also generating information such as XML files or AML files. So as we're proceeding with the different courses and the different workflows that we have in place with the different applications that are evolving, we can actually communicate with them. So we're not necessarily using a tool that doesn't use the latest technology available. We're really one step ahead and making sure that we have those options available for our users so that they can quickly integrate these different tasks that they need to do with all the information that is required for them to do it in. Generating information such as Excel spreadsheets, text files. As you can see very clearly, we can go from concept to commissioning and everything in between, obviously to enable us to have a clear view of everything that needs to be associated inside the platform that will be able to send information out and communicate this information to different departments, as well as using this medium to produce service and maintenance documentation that might be required, such as PDF, such as maybe some DXF, DWGs or whatnot. And of course, this information that is easily accessible to me now and easily producible by me using this environment gives greater flexibility. So looking at the different suite of products that we have available, as you can see, we pretty much cover every single step, every single department. And of course, all these objects that you see are interconnected and the data is being shared across the board. So let me just end this here and let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so let me go into my environment, share my screen here, and just close that up. So I do have a Eplan project open. And I'll be going into the design phases of my project. As you can see here, I'll open up a schematic sheet. It's a graphical page. And to this graphical page, I've associated some planning or some pre-planning properties, meaning that what I could do is I can grab a graphical representation of the machine and start adding logical items without necessarily being too discrete about having, schematic sheets or documents that I need to produce. I can actually have the system produce that information for me. So what I mean with this is that if I insert a drive, so I do know that I have some drive object that's going to be running the conveyor system here, and of course I can place it. This drive object gets populated inside the pre-planning navigator, which basically enables us to start to see the information associated to that drive object, meaning that when we are selecting the drive object and we're bringing it into our environment, there are certain drive functions that we might be able to adjust, such as settings that we might be able to associate to this. So if I go here to the properties of this drive, I do have here under the macros environment, based on the placeholders that are associated inside that macro, this gives me greater flexibility. I can actually go ahead and choose different options, different variations of this specific motor drive in accordance to specifications from either my customer, either my department heads. Basically, what I can do with this configurator, I can actually pre-set up and state how I want the information to be displayed. And of course, from this information that is associated, macro information is associated as well, allowing me to generate schematic information about this specific object. So if I go over here and I see here the drive, and I grab the drive object, drag and drop it into my project environment, let go, and basically here now it's going to tell me to, number the devices. I'm going to say OK. And of course, here now I have a new drive section with all the schematic sheets relating to that particular instance. So all the information that I had associated with inside the placeholder objects and all the information that's already pre-configured inside this drive environment, all these schematic sheets are now produced automatically, so I no longer have to really worry too much about actually doing the design work or the schematic work. Similarly, of course, if I go ahead and insert pneumatic or fluid objects, if I insert here a cylinder, and I know this cylinder might have some level of, it has a task to perform. Maybe it's pushing some arm in here, and as I place the cylinder, again, the populated information goes into the proper navigator. And here in the cylinder option, I can actually go in and also use my configuration tools. So I can actually give this information the appropriate data that is associated for this particular component. And as I place that, when I go again and use that function to drag and drop it into my schematic project and number the devices here, I get the schematic data for the specific areas that I need, whether they be electrical design or whether they be pneumatic design. That information is clearly presented to us, and very easily, since all this information is cross-referenceable, we can actually click on it and we can jump over to wherever this object is placed and specified. So obviously, the high level of detail that we can associate to these objects, to these planning objects, and enables us to mass produce and actually have greater speed in the production levels that we need to associate. So if I continue my design here as well, what we can see, if I have here a particular instance of a PLC that I need to add, so I can actually grab this guy here, control click using Windows-based functionality, control click, control A, control C, control V, all the different Windows functions that are available to you. These are the functions that I use when I'm using the Eplan environment. So very easily, I have quick access to functions that are available to me in an environment that I'm familiar with. I don't need to remember commands or write scripts or contact my software vendor for them to actually program tasks that I need to have performed. Eplan basically covers all those grounds. Again, as I'm doing my design work, inside here what I need to do is I need to associate maybe a particular component. Again, as I stated earlier, there could be instances where customers have specific requirements, and one of those requirements would be to actually use a particular product of their choosing. This product I might not necessarily have access to, or I might not have it in my parts database, and I need to get that part into the project so that I can use it inside my project. And of course, to do so, I would have to normally go traditionally through catalogs or maybe even go through the website, try to find that information myself, hunt for that information and the proper information. Sometimes the internet is very vast and big, and you can get lost very easily. So Eplan has devised a application that we talked about earlier, which is the data portal. So in the data portal environment, of course, being a repository of manufacturer information, I can scroll and look through the different manufacturers that are available to me, and I can look for the particular manufacturer that I need, that it was spec'd out by the customer, and I can actually go through and navigate over to whatever the device is that I'm looking for. So I can actually go here. Oops, that was a resistor. What I want to do is I want to go and grab a relay. So here, grab a relay function, and as you can see, there's a lot of information inside the data portal associated to this particular device object that I need. If I select it here, I'll have a little bit more in-depth detail. about the part information associated. So whether it be some technical information about the component, you have different languages in which this component has information on it. We have also additional documentation that is associated to this particular device. So if I have any documents that I need for commissioning, or maybe for certain requirements or specifications that I need to be aware of, this information will be downloaded from the data portal and added into your parts database for future use. As you can see, the high level of detail that is associated to these products enable us to really have a huge benefit in having this connectivity through the data portal, and then of course bringing it into our project. And as you can see here, being the Wikipedia of Parts, basically, it enables the users to actually be part of this experience as well, to get their feedback and maybe rate this particular device and say, yeah, this is great, or it's not so great. You can actually add your comments, and you can add information relating to this particular part. And we can actually transfer this information to the manufacturer, since it is them who is producing this information and we're housing it inside the data portal. The benefit here is that you're involved. We make this data accurate, and we maintain it. We make sure that everyone is getting the latest and the greatest. And of course, we move along, and the growth of this tool enables us to have a huge level of flexibility. If I select a part and I say here, download from the data portal into my parts database, when I bring that component in, it sticks to my mouse and, of course, gives me the proper representation based on the environment that I'm in. And I can go ahead and place this. So as I place this component, the component is now associated. I can connect it with my T-node and make sure that's connected to the circuit, and follow along and continue my design processes. And as you can see, of course, as I'm dropping these objects into my schematic environment, things are happening in the background. Information such as connection data, maybe device data, bill of materials. These are things that I can start to produce now, because I have access to that information through the platform environment. If I need to generate, connection list, maybe a bill of materials, maybe what I need is a terminal diagram, maybe I need some PLC information, maybe I need some revision data. So all this information is accessible to you based on the fact that it lives inside the platform environment. And of course, due to the fact that we have access to that information, it gives us greater flexibility. An example, if I'm generating a report, maybe I want to generate a bill of material with different criteria. So this is something that is very easy for me to do, and it's not something that I have to work very hard in doing. And I can actually achieve this level of flexibility based on the fact that I can add filter, sorting functionality. So very ease of use logical instances that enable us to have the adequate amount of information with the detail, as much as detailed amount of data that we can provide. Your customers can actually see this as beneficial to them, because the more data they have, of course, the better everyone is. And of course, having this information directly from the schematic environment is always accurate. There's always a high level of information that I can produce, but also making sure, crossing my fingers, that that information is correct and accurate and doesn't need my supervision. And that is something that a lot of people have issues with. Whereas in our environment, it's always one-to-one. Whatever is reflected inside the schematic will be shown inside their different report types. So as I stated also, is the fact that we can start to grab data that's residing in the platform and start to communicate this data to other sources. So we can actually go here through the utilities function and generate an export list. Maybe it's a wire label list that I can generate from maybe a from-to report type. I can also generate this in different languages. So the platform, the environment that Eplan uses contains data in also multiple languages. What are the benefits of this is that if you're working with different departments that maybe reside in other countries, this can give you greater flexibility for the production purposes, because of course your machine needs to be produced, and the more people we can get involved, even if they're not necessarily, in our office, and they're in other countries, and we can get, some people that are really high level who are not necessarily capable of being at our local office per se. I can actually send this information in the language of choice. So another huge benefit that we see with customers is that even small customers who are starting up with Eplan see benefits in these level of functions, because now they can actually get bids for tasks and jobs that they were not able to do because they cringed at the idea of all the manual work that's involved. For me, this is not the case. It's just a switch, a toggle. I select the language I want. I select that I want all the information to come out, and I basically just tell Eplan to spit that information out in an Excel spreadsheet. Once that information comes out, of course, I can now start to use it and send it to whoever is, needs this data, whether it be maybe purchasing needs a bill of material in an Excel format, because obviously they do not have Eplan. They don't know how to use it. They don't need to know how to use it, but they do need an Excel spreadsheet with all the information that is required. So here I can have information about connections, the source and target of the wire, maybe even routing data, cross-section diameter, maybe even length information for the wire production team, so they actually know how much wire they need to pull and cut and prepare for the panel wiring that will be coming later on. As well as from this environment, of course, now that we place the components in there, we can actually go ahead and start to produce other aspects of this environment, which would be the panel design section. So in the panel design environment, of course, as you can see, we can use this tool integrated in my Eplan environment in the platform. This would be the Pro Panel environment, which allows you to prototype the panel and actually have a clear-cut view of the components that you've actually selected inside the project versus you're placing them inside this cabinet. The door is actually going to close. So these are little tasks that seem tedious, but of course, in the long run, it can produce errors if you're not careful. So obviously, Eplan takes care of that and allowing you to live that experience, error-free. If I look at the different information associated here, of course, if I go ahead and select here the back plate, so I can actually, use this tool in a very straightforward and easy way, mouse-driven functionality. You don't need to have high-level 3D, modeling tool experience. You can use this because it's geared for the tasks at hand, and I can actually use these tasks with these easy-to-use functions and actually start to produce the information that I need. Looking back here at the particular relay that I placed from the data portal, if I access the device navigator here and I select this device synchronize selection so I can find it inside the Navigator, back inside my panel environment, if I want to place that particular relay inside this area here, what I can do is I can just basically grab it, drag and drop it out. It sticks to my mouse. If I get close to the DIN rail, it snaps to the rail, and I can go ahead and position it and place it. You do have properties that enable you to do placement options to give it offsets and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of flexibility in the different functions available in this aspect here. Of course, if I go ahead and place that, that is now placed, and of course, it's linked. So there's always a cross-reference between the objects wherever they reside inside my schematic. If they're displayed in a different location, this information is going to be accessible to you, and it's going to be cross-referenced throughout the project. There's no scripting that is running in the background to maintain that. I don't even have a save functionality. So there's a lot of cumbersome small features that we don't necessarily need to have these features available to me, because these are not things I need to worry about when I'm in the design stages. And this is something that's very beneficial, of course. From here, again, inside the enclosure, I can start to produce information that would be necessary to maybe the panel build team. Obviously, here I can start to see the drilling information that has been associated to this, and the drilling data that is, associated with the components that I'm placing in the back through the back plate. And the benefit here, of course, of having this information is that we can actually communicate this data, as I stated earlier, back to a machine, that maybe an ANSI drilling machine that can actually read that file in the file format that is been stipulated, and it'll be able to produce those, punch those holes through, or drill those holes through, or do the cutouts necessary. But if you don't have it, you can even produce, drilling templates, PDFs that you can print on a plotter and tape over the backplate. So the benefits here are threefold, because the time that you're saving when you're using these features and functions equivalent to tons of money that you can save in a lifespan of maybe either a project, or either whether it be a 6-month basis, a 1-year basis. A lot of people might think, oh yeah, these are great features and they're nice, but it's very expensive and I don't know if I can afford it. Well, you're spending that money already. So you're already doing things manually. You're already producing documentation manually. You're already spending that money and more if you really do the math right. And you can see that maybe with the money that you're already spending unnecessarily, you can actually get yourself a license or two, and even maybe a NC drilling machine. Maybe you can get yourself a keyslate machine, and you'd be good to go. You'd be ready to start producing this information automatically, of course. Now, the benefits as well from here is the capability of sending documentation for service and maintenance, and even for commissioning. We can actually go ahead and generate here a PDF. The smart PDF would get generated, and here, this is my device page. If I look here at some level of documentation that was already produced, I have here a link to the PDF that was generated, and if I select it here and open my PDF, the PDF information that was generated from my Eplan project, I can now use that information to, like I stated earlier, commissioning, maybe some service that the service department might need this. So very easy functionality for them to navigate in and to actually see, if they need to find the crossreference, they can actually jump. So the jump functionality is available. Documentation is associated. High level of information coming out of the platform to be able to generate this level of documentation, to be able to give a greater flexibility in the quality of information that's been produced. Again, the benefits here is the growth that your company can have, the prosperity and the headaches that you're no longer needing to have when you're producing this level of documentation. All right, so pretty much in a nutshell, this has been the presentation for the Eplan platform. We are still around, we're still available, and what we're going to do right now is we're going to take in some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and just pause my presentation and see if there's any chat or any questions that we can answer. Again, for those of you who are still with us and are enjoying the fair, there are other presentations coming your way, so we highly recommend you to basically, walk around the lobby area, get into the chat rooms. If you have any questions in particular based on some of the functionalities that you're seeing today, there are technical team members available for you to answer these questions and maybe help you to better understand some of the features that are available. Okay. Not seeing any questions so far, so this is looking good. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, as I stated, if you have any additional questions, we are in the different chat rooms. You can ping us and ask us these questions if you think about it a little bit later on, something that you might have missed in the presentation. And of course, that being said, I thank you for attending this presentation, and I look forward to seeing you in the next presentations to come. Thank you very much.